And now I'll add my secret weapon, the distortion. Energy, volume, life. In the context of the mix, it just announces the snare. In these videos, I'll go through every aspect of this mix. So that was the same song from video 1 where we mixed the kick. In this video, we'll go through the snare. And just like before, I'll run through the plugins quickly. And if you want to stay a bit longer, I'll explain each plugin and each move in it in a lot more detail. Okay, so let's hear the drums by themselves. The sound I was going for was like a hard emo sound. But there's a lot of mid-range in there. I'm trying to sort of go for a modern take on that sort of traditional emo from 2003, 2004, the good old days. So like with the kick, got my snare samples running into a snare bus. And then that snare bus will be run into the drum bus here and mixed into these plugins. And the analog saturation plugin, NLS channel from Waves, and then the Townhouse from Plugin Alliance, Brainworks. I've also got the actual individual samples being bussed out to different reverbs. We've got a gated reverb, and we'll have a snare verb, which is probably over here. Yeah, snare verb as well. So we'll go through those two. Okay, so first up to the snare, tape saturation, Saturn 2 from FabFilter. Tape saturation for me takes the harsh digitalness out of the attack of the snare. It's such a transient, heavy drum that I think it can be so clean when, in the box that you probably need to spice things up a little bit with some of that analog stuff. Into an EQ. Broad strokes here, we're just rolling off the low end that we don't need and then taming the high end. I think snares can sound a little bit like a sneeze. I didn't want it to be overly bright. I knew I was going to do a lot of brightness on the mix bus and the master bus. I'm keeping things dark for now, giving it that sort of old school emo vibe, but still allowing it to hit hard and be very clear, the modern take on it. This is the DBX 160. This is great for snares. I don't know why, because you don't have that much control over it in terms of attack and release times, but I chuck it on every mix to see if it works. And in this one, I really liked how it sounded on the snare. Then into the channel strip from Waves, the SSL channel. We've got the just under 2K there, a very slight boost. I think that's probably where I wanted the presence to be. I tamed it with the Pro Q3, and I'm just boosting it here where I wanted it to be. And I like how this plugin sounds for sort of presence. And then down here, we've got the punch boost. Quite low down, actually, 165. I think snares you'll find usually around 200 hertz, but I was playing around and sort of heard how it sounded at 165. My secret weapon on snare, the distortion plugin from Logic, the stock distortion plugin from Logic, and then a transient designer, my favorite transient designer. That's controversial. One of my favorite transient designers. Giving it some sustain. For me, programmed drums, especially the snares, can lack a little bit of decay. So this is a great tool to use on programmed drums to give it a more of a real feel. Okay, so we'll turn all these plugins off. We'll go through everything one by one. Let's hear the snare by itself with nothing on it. Very nice, very snappy. Again, this is from GGD, Modern and Massive. And I've left those kick, I guess it's like sympathetic resonance, isn't it? I've left that kick resonance in there. It adds a bit of bite to the kick. I think it sounds cool. Okay, so let's add the saturation. See how that gives it a sort of thickness? It does tame that very sharp digital attack. Rounds it off nicely. It's not overly saturated, but I really like what that does. Now I'll show you the individual bands on the Pro Q3 and why I cut them. Nothing happening down there. That is mostly thud and stuff that's going to just interfere with the kick and the bass and the vocals down there too. You don't need that in snares. Rather than solo this one, I will bypass it so you can hear the difference. Just stops it from sounding like a sneeze a little bit. Okay, this compressor here, which again, I'll just chuck on and see if it does what I want it to do. See how it sounds, and if it's sends me in a cool direction with the snare, then I'll go with it. See, I love that sort of almost over compressed sound and what it does to the tail and the life that gives the snare. You don't hear it sounding that over compressed in the mix, not in my opinion anyway. And we'll be bringing a lot of that life back with the distortion. So the two EQ boosts in the SSL plugin, let's hear those. It brings back a lot of the life that the compressor is sucking out. I really like how that vibe, you know, that might not be your thing. You might want a more natural dynamic snare, in which case you wouldn't use the DBX 160, you'd use something like we use on the kick, like the CLA 76, and you just wouldn't drive it as hard. That's a personal preference thing. So let's do these bands one by one. So we'll start with the low band. See, that's why I went for the 165, because it really, down there in sort of lower than 200, it wasn't muddy. It really was where I felt the punch was coming through. Now let's do the 1.8 kilohertz. That opens it up. All of that room sound you're getting from that over-compressed snare is now coming to life with that top-end boost. So that's why I did it. And now I'll add my secret weapon, the distortion. Energy, volume, life. In the context of the mix, it just announces the snare. No, I don't have to describe this too much. It's pretty obvious what it's doing. I always make sure that the tone is full band so that it doesn't focus on one frequency and sort of skew the EQ. I only have to nudge this. Sometimes 3 decibels is too much. And then I'll be matching the, just making sure it doesn't get overly loud. Let's hear that again. See, I love the energy that has and what that also does to that decay that the compressor is bringing out. And then, because I love that decay so much, we emphasize it more with the transient designer. Let's hear that. I have brought the output gain down, which is why it gets quieter when it's turned on. That is a gain staging move, just so that I'm, you know, by the time I get to the bus, I'm not going crazy with the meters there. Let's turn these sends on. This is the gated snare. So now let's have a listen to that. A gated snare is like a short burst of reverb that's cut off. You know, it's gated. Quite an 80s move, but that really does come through in the mix because the snare can sound very dry and awkward and separate if you don't sort of give it some wetness. So the gated snare gives that sort of tail a bit more of a place in the mix. It's hard to explain in isolation, but as we get through into the mix, I think you'd start to miss it. So I wouldn't do this straight away. I would bring this in towards the end, along with the snare reverb, just to sort of fit that snare in and make it sound more like a cohesive drum sound. How I got that was Valhalla Room, which actually has a medium gate preset. And then here with the pre-delay and decay, you can tailor it to the tempo of the song. Some people like to work it out to the millisecond. I just like to vibe it, see how it feels, and go with that. And then we finished it off with the frequencies I didn't like from that gated snare, which I'm just getting rid of, and then brightening it up, get some presence in there. Okay, and then I didn't send the snare bottom mic, you know, the snappy, sizzly part of the snare. I didn't send that to this snare verb over here, which is the Chroma Verb, a stock Logic plugin set to room. And I don't think I touched it. I maybe brought the decay down. I'm pretty sure that's may have tinkered with the EQ a little bit, but I'm pretty sure that's how it is when you open it up. I probably darkened it actually thinking about it. There you can see, pulled out some of those mids. I didn't want this to be too present. Let's hear the snare with that as well. There we go, a real roomy snare, but that gets eaten up by the guitars. So it doesn't sound so obviously reverby by that point. And we do actually have a snare room sample, which I should play. That's, again, straight out of GGD. That is the mono room. So if we play the snare and we mute that, See how that's actually providing the tail that the compressor clamps or is bringing out, sorry, and that the EQ and distortion is working on, basically. I just quickly want to mention that if you make music like this and you want your next song to sound like this mix, I do offer mixing over at my website, terrybeckleyrecording.com. So if that interests you, then head over there, hit me up via the contact form. The link is in the description. If you want to keep up with these videos, then please subscribe to my channel. Eventually, I'll be going through every aspect of this mix. So thank you for watching. I'll see you at the next one.